I still remember the image as if it were frozen in time. The private jet grounded by a sudden storm, exhausted travelers redirected onto a crowded commercial flight, and a powerful CEO, known for controlling every second of her life, unknowingly falling asleep on the shoulder of a struggling single father. What happened halfway through that flight would leave her speechless, change two lives forever, and remind everyone who hears this story that kindness often arrives in the most unexpected moments. Before we begin, if you believe that kindness, second chances, and human compassion still matter in today's world, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps bring more heartwarming stories like this to people around the world. Sophia Reynolds was the kind of woman people wrote articles about. At 42 years old, she had built one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the country. Financial magazines called her brilliant. Business channels called her unstoppable. Investors admired her discipline, and employees respected her demanding standards. To the world, Sophia appeared to have everything. Yet very few people knew the truth. For years, Sophia had sacrificed nearly every personal relationship for her career. Her marriage had ended quietly. Her parents had passed away within a few years of each other. Her penthouse apartment overlooked the city skyline, but most nights it felt painfully empty. Success had brought her wealth, prestige, and influence, but it had also built invisible walls around her heart. That rainy evening, she was returning home after a week of exhausting meetings. A severe storm had grounded private aircraft throughout the region, forcing even wealthy executives onto commercial flights. Sophia wasn't happy about it. She hated crowds. She hated delays. Most of all, she hated losing control of her schedule. When she finally boarded the nearly full plane, she found herself seated beside a man who looked completely different from anyone she usually interacted with. His clothes were neat but worn. Dark circles rested beneath tired eyes. His hands showed signs of hard work. Beside him sat a little girl no older than 7 years old, clutching a stuffed rabbit whose fur had clearly been loved for many years. The man's name was Daniel Carter. Life had not been kind to Daniel. 3 years earlier, his wife had lost her battle with cancer. The loss shattered his world overnight. Suddenly, he was responsible for raising their daughter, Emma, alone. Every day became a balancing act between grief, parenting, and survival. He worked long hours as a maintenance supervisor for a large apartment complex. He cooked meals, helped with homework, attended school meetings, and tucked Emma into bed every night. He rarely slept more than a few hours. He rarely spent money on himself. Everything he earned went toward giving Emma the stable childhood she deserved. That evening, father and daughter were returning from visiting Daniel's mother, who had recently undergone surgery. Sophia barely acknowledged them as she settled into her seat. She answered emails, reviewed reports, checked financial updates, prepared presentations. Even after takeoff, she remained buried in work while most passengers relaxed. Hours passed. The cabin lights dimmed. The steady hum of the engines filled the darkness. Eventually, exhaustion began winning a battle even Sophia couldn't control. Her eyes grew heavy. Her thoughts became foggy. Then, without realizing it, she drifted asleep. A few minutes later, her head gently leaned sideways and came to rest on Daniel's shoulder. Several nearby passengers noticed immediately. One smiled. Another quietly chuckled. Daniel himself froze for a moment. The powerful executive sitting beside him looked vulnerable for the first time all evening. He could have moved away. He could have woken her. Instead, he remained perfectly still. For nearly an hour, he barely shifted. His shoulder grew numb. His neck became stiff. Yet he refused to disturb her rest. Emma noticed too. Looking up at her father, she whispered something that made him smile softly. Then she carefully adjusted her small blanket so it partially covered Sophia as well. Neither of them expected anything in return. They simply saw a tired person who needed rest. But the most extraordinary moment was still ahead. Halfway through the flight, turbulence suddenly shook the aircraft. Passengers startled awake. Seatbelt signs flashed. The plane dipped unexpectedly. Several people gasped. Emma, who had always been afraid of flying, immediately grabbed her father's arm. Fear filled her eyes. Daniel wrapped one arm around her and began comforting her. At first, Sophia remained half asleep. Then she opened her eyes and noticed the terrified child. Something happened inside her at that moment. Perhaps it was seeing Emma's trembling hands. Perhaps it was witnessing Daniel's patience. Or perhaps it was the loneliness she had carried for so many years finally recognizing something beautiful. Without thinking, Sophia began helping calm Emma as well. She pointed out the lights outside the window. She explained how turbulence worked. She reassured her that airplanes were designed to handle far worse conditions. Slowly, Emma relaxed. The fear faded. A small smile returned. What happened next completely surprised Sophia. Emma reached into her backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper. The little girl proudly handed it to Sophia. It was a drawing. Crayon colors covered the page. At the center stood a family of 3. A mother, a father, a little girl. Sophia immediately understood. This was a picture drawn before Emma's mother died. The edges were worn from being folded and unfolded countless times. Daniel's expression softened when he saw it. For several seconds, silence filled the space between them. Then Sophia noticed something else. On the back of the drawing was a handwritten note. It had been written by Emma's mother during her final months. The message was simple. It spoke about kindness, about courage, about loving others even when life feels unfair, about believing that good people still exist. Daniel explained quietly that Emma carried the drawing everywhere. Whenever she missed her mother, she looked at it. Whenever life became difficult, it reminded her that love never truly disappears. Sophia stared at the paper longer than she intended. Because suddenly, all the awards in her office felt meaningless. All the luxury she owned seemed insignificant. Everything she had spent years chasing appeared strangely small compared to the simple love represented by that piece of paper. For the first time in years, tears threatened to form in her eyes. As the flight continued, Sophia found herself talking with Daniel. Not as a CEO. Not as a billionaire executive. Just as another human being. She learned about his struggles. The medical bills. The sleepless nights. The sacrifices. The endless determination required to raise Emma alone. Yet what amazed her most was that Daniel never complained. He never described himself as a victim. He simply focused on moving forward one day at a time. Sophia couldn't stop thinking about how different their lives were. She had resources beyond imagination. Daniel had almost none, yet somehow he seemed richer in the ways that mattered most. When the plane finally landed, passengers gathered their belongings and prepared to leave. Sophia assumed their brief connection would end there. Life often works that way. Strangers cross paths and disappear forever. But fate had one more surprise waiting. As passengers exited the aircraft, Emma accidentally left her stuffed rabbit beneath her seat. Several minutes later, after reaching the terminal, the little girl realized it was missing. Panic immediately appeared on her face. That rabbit wasn't just a toy. It had belonged to her mother. Daniel rushed back toward the gate, desperately hoping it could be recovered. Sophia happened to witness the situation. Without hesitation, she joined the search. Airport staff checked the aircraft. Cleaning crews looked through every row. Time passed. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Then finally, a worker emerged holding the worn rabbit. The moment Emma hugged it against her chest, relief flooded her face. Sophia felt something tighten in her heart. She couldn't explain why. Maybe because she had spent years solving million-dollar problems while forgetting the importance of small ones. Maybe because no business victory had ever looked as meaningful as that little girl's smile. Before leaving the airport, Sophia handed Daniel her business card. She thanked him for his kindness during the flight. Daniel smiled politely and slipped the card into his pocket. He didn't know who she was. He never looked at the company name. To him, she was simply a fellow passenger. A week later, Daniel received shocking news. The apartment complex where he worked was being acquired by a major corporation. Restructuring would eliminate several positions, including his. The announcement felt like a punch to the stomach. Bills still needed paying. Emma still depended on him. Losing his job could destroy the fragile stability he had fought so hard to build. Days later, he received an unexpected phone call. The caller invited him to interview for a management position at a rapidly growing company. Confused, Daniel agreed. When he arrived at headquarters, his jaw nearly dropped. The building was stunning. The company was internationally recognized. And sitting in the conference room was Sophia. Only then did he discover who she really was. Sophia explained that after their flight, she couldn't stop thinking about him and Emma. She had quietly researched his professional background. His supervisors described him as dependable, hardworking, and respected. The more she learned, the more impressed she became. She wasn't offering charity. She was offering opportunity. The position came with excellent benefits, flexible scheduling, and a salary significantly higher than what he had previously earned. Daniel sat speechless. For years, life had delivered setback after setback. Now, for the first time, a door was opening. He accepted the position. The months that followed transformed his family's future. Financial pressure eased. Emma joined activities she had previously been unable to afford. Daniel finally had enough stability to spend more quality time with his daughter. Yet the greatest change occurred somewhere unexpected. Inside Sophia herself, she began spending occasional weekends volunteering at community programs sponsored by her company. She visited schools, supported family assistance initiatives, mentored young entrepreneurs. For the first time in many years, her life expanded beyond boardrooms and profit margins. And every so often, she would receive handmade drawings from Emma. Simple pictures, bright colors, happy smiles, tiny reminders of what truly mattered. 1 year later, the company hosted a charity event benefiting families who had lost loved ones to illness. Hundreds attended. Employees shared stories. Volunteers spoke about resilience. Near the end of the evening, Daniel stepped onto the stage. He wasn't comfortable speaking publicly, but he wanted to share something important. He described the flight, the storm, the unexpected meeting, the kindness exchanged between strangers. Then he spoke about how one act of compassion had changed the course of his daughter's future. Many people in the audience wiped away tears. Sophia sat silently near the front row. For once, she wasn't being praised for business success. She was being thanked for something far more meaningful. And that mattered infinitely more. Before we reach the ending, I have a special request for you. Comment below with the words, "Kindness changes lives," if you believe even a small act of compassion can create a ripple effect far beyond what we can see. As the event ended, Emma approached Sophia carrying a new drawing. This time, the picture showed 4 people. Daniel, Emma, Emma's mother represented by a bright star in the sky, and Sophia. Above them, written in a child's careful handwriting, were words that left the CEO speechless. The message simply said that family isn't always the people you're born with. Sometimes it's the people who show up when you need them most. Sophia stared at the drawing as tears finally escaped her eyes. In that moment, she understood something she had spent decades searching for. Success is wonderful. Achievement matters. Hard work has value. But the greatest wealth in life will always be human connection. The shoulder she accidentally slept on during a delayed flight had carried more strength, love, and character than many powerful people she had known. And the little girl who carried a worn stuffed rabbit had reminded her that kindness is never wasted. It travels. It grows. It changes lives. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps these stories reach more people who may need a reminder that kindness still exists in the world. Because sometimes, the most important journeys don't begin in boardrooms, mansions, or offices. Sometimes they begin on an ordinary flight, with a tired stranger, a gentle shoulder, and a simple act of kindness that changes everything.